my name is David Reid. I'm the Head of Student Admissions here at Point Blank Music School. I'm joined this week by Ben Bristow, who's our Head DJ Tutor. Welcome to Friday Forum Live. Hello, welcome along. It's 1 o'clock here in London, which means it's Friday Forum Live time. If you tuned in last week, you'll remember this face. Ben did a DJ demo sort of tutorial, answered some of your DJ questions. Seemed to go down really well. We got lots of people asking questions on the forum, on the comments last week. So we thought we'd bring him back for more. So if you've got any DJ questions that weren't answered last week, or you're thinking of taking a DJ course with us, or you've just got general questions about the courses or some of the sort of subjects that we teach, as always, drop them into the comments section and we'll do our best to answer them. Also, let us know where you're watching. It's always nice to hear from students or people that are considering courses from all over the world. So again, drop your comments into the comments section and we'll try and give a few of you a shout out and obviously answer your questions as we go. Before we get to Ben's mad DJ skills, again, I'll just tell you a few things that are kind of going on this week. The big news in the UK this week is it's A-level exam results week. So I'm sure there's a few of you out there that were kind of, waiting nervously for news yesterday of A-level results. Just a reminder that Point Blank does offer degree level courses now. There are still some places available, so if you're still sort of weighing up your options for September and you'd like to study at degree level with Point Blank, give us a call, pick up the phone, get in touch with our course advisors and we'll be happy to advise. If the academic route isn't for you, again, there's a whole range of courses enrolling every month, and our course advisors are there to steer you towards the course that's going to be most beneficial for you. So if that's a degree course, we'd love to talk to you. If you're looking for something that's more practical, more hands-on, and involves getting some advice from and feedback from someone who's a professional producer, then we can help with that as well. So yeah, as I said, get in touch, let us know what it is you're looking for, and I'm sure we can find something to suit. The regular online classes start on Monday, so if you jump on the website, which I'm going to do now, you'll see there's the degree level courses that I was just mentioning. So as you can see, they're offered in partnership with Middlesex University. If you jump into the home page, as you can see, we're 2 days away from the start date. So all the other courses start on Monday. Again, there is last minute availability, so if you're quick, you can still bag a class starting on Monday. In particular, this is your last chance to grab a DJ course for half price. We've been running this offer all the way through August. So if you like what you saw Ben doing last week, or you like what you're about to see Ben doing this week, there's still time to jump on a DJ course, and it's 50% off if you book this month. That is a very limited offer though, and there's very limited places left, so you need to move pretty quickly on that one. There's still a chance to try some free courses as well, and you'll find the free course samples just up here. So check those out. They're just like little kind of bite-size samples from the courses, just so you get a feel for how the course material works and how our system of teaching works. The only thing you don't get with the free course samples is the interaction with the tutor, and to be honest, that's the best bit of the course, because it means that each week you can upload your work and get some feedback, some expert feedback from someone who's a professional producer, DJ, songwriter, audio engineer. And that's what makes Point Blank different, is that we don't just give you a bunch of material and let you get on with it, or a kind of tutorial like you find on YouTube. It's all about listening to your music and giving you some personal feedback on how you're progressing, and helping you to get to where you want to get to with your sound. So check out some of the free courses, and as I say, bear in mind that on the real course you've got a regular interaction with someone who's a pro, and each week they'll give you some feedback on your music. Speaking of pros, we're joined next Tuesday for our next live masterclass by Zombie Disco Squad. One of the guys from Zombie Disco Squad is coming in to do a live masterclass. If you haven't seen them before, they're great. It's a really good way to get an insight into how, you know, some of the kind of well-known producers out there put their tracks together and what their approach is to making music. There's a whole host of those on our blog and on the YouTube channel. I mean, some of the people we've had in recently have been High Ranking, DJ Crust. So yeah, there's all sorts of good stuff on the YouTube channel there, and also on our blog. If you haven't seen the blog, it looks like that. And if you scroll down the page, you will see, I think, yeah, there you go, Zombie Disco Squad, Music Production Live Masterclass. That's Tuesday the 21st. It's 4 PM in the UK. What else can I tell you? That's pretty much it in terms of the news, really. So yeah, as I said, main thing to bear in mind, DJ courses and all the other online courses start on Monday. So this is your last chance really to get on board. And as I said, half price on the DJ courses for the remainder of this month. So Ben, what have you got in store this week?
Well, I was going to run through a couple of different, one of the basic scratch techniques, the transformer scratch, and also a way of kind of faking that with the effects on the mixer. For those of you who haven't quite practiced it as much as me. And a couple of little things you can do with the CDJ, just kind of creating build-up noises with a combination of effects and the kind of cue points and stuff.
Nice,
yeah.
Okay.
And obviously whatever questions we get asked, I'll try.
Yeah, I'm just logging into the comments now, so yeah, we'll keep checking in there, see what you guys are saying, see what you guys like to see, but I'll hand you over to Ben, and yeah, we'll get started. As I said, let us know where you're watching from, and yeah, we'll answer your questions as we go.
Cool. Right, so what I was going to run through was one of the basic scratches, or one of the earlier scratches, called the transformer scratch. This was popularised by kind of Jazzy Jeff and Cash Money, sort of in the early 80s. But basically the principle of the transformer scratch is chopping a sound up using the crossfader. So when you've got a sample like that, which is kind of traditional scratching sound, basically what you're doing is opening and shutting the fader to chop it into separate chunks. So if I were to kind of move the sound forward and then open and shut the fader like 3 times, I'd obviously get 3 separate sounds. So now the thing a lot of people do when they're practicing the transformer scratch is kind of hold the fader in the wrong way, or in a way that's not as kind of accurate. So a lot of DJs, you might find they'll hold the fader by like holding both sides of it like this, so they're kind of using their whole arm to open and shut like that. That works, but what you want to probably try and get the hang of is if you think of your thumb a bit like a spring. So if your thumb is resting on the crossfader like this, pushing lightly kind of against, you know, so the fader's shut, what you're kind of doing is a sort of pincer type movement. So it means when you slam your fingers into the fader, your thumb naturally resists the fader and snaps the fader shut. So it means your fingers are literally tapping it open, but your thumb is doing half the work for you because it's kind of shutting automatically almost. So that means you can literally just tap whilst moving your hand on the platter, and you can get quite accurate chops of the sound. So with the transformer, I mean, there's literally millions of combinations. Anything where you're kind of chopping the sound in and out like that is transforming. So, I mean, what we teach at the college is kind of thinking about the different possible combinations that you could get out of that. So you could start by doing, for example, 2 sounds from the forward motion of the platter, and then another 2 from the rewind motion. So, because then you've got 4 sounds in total, 2 forward, 2 back. Then obviously you can start adding extra sounds, so you could then think, right, okay, now I'm going to do 3 sounds forward and 3 sounds backwards. If you practice all of those different combinations enough, you'll have a lot of different options. So when you're kind of freestyling, you'll have already practiced 3 forward, 2 back, and you'll be able to kind of go into that pattern, as it were. So yeah, it's really just thinking about this tension on the fader. Obviously, you want to make sure your crossfader is set to sharp as well if you're scratching, because you want it so that that means as soon as you open the fader, the sound is as loud as it's going to get. Whereas if it's on one of the other settings, it will slightly fade in, which is not great for sharp kind of cutting of the sound. So yeah, basically get your thumb on the crossfader, pushing it so that the fader's closing off the sound, and then try and move your hand like this, so it's kind of the muscles you use to grip with, basically. Slam those into the fader, but don't let it come open too much, because then you're kind of, it will take longer. So the trick is to keep it tight to that side so you can get lots of sharp cuts. It means you can do more in a shorter space of time. Now, for those of you who haven't practiced that, there is a little trick you can use incorporating the loop function on the CD deck and the effect on the mixer, which is trans. So that's short for transform or transformer, because it's such a commonly used kind of term in DJ terms that you often will find a trans effect on a mixer. Some it might be called gate, so it basically chops the sound in and out, like I was just doing here with the fader. This is a kind of James Abelia trick where basically you can loop the sample, put an effect over it so that it cuts in and out, and then it basically means you can move the platter around and it will do half of the work that the crossfader was doing for you. So if I play a beat first, what I'm going to do is set a loop around that R sound so there's no gap, so it's just going R, R like that. So I'm just going to change the speed slightly so that it kind of loops in time with the beat, so every beat is basically one loop. Now I'm going to tap the tempo into the mixer, put it on the trans effect, and assign it to the channel that the scratching sound is on. Now if I put it on like a quarter value and activate it, you can hear it's cutting the sound in and out quickly. So now it means you can just move the platter because you're changing the kind of speed you do it at, you move the platter, it kind of sounds like you're scratching, because scratching is about cutting the sound in and out and creating different pitches. And obviously because the sound is looping, it's not going to run out, so you can literally fling the platter around and it will still... Now for added believability, if you're trying to fool your friends or your, the promoters out there, what you could do is make sure that the fader is no longer assigned to that sound, so the fader doesn't work anymore, but I could just basically pretend that I'm using that. And obviously it looks like you're actually creating that effect, so I wouldn't advise just doing that. Obviously it's going to sound better if you can really scratch, but it's a nice little kind of cheat. You can even go to the next level. If you went to an 8th note, then it's going to sound like, like Cuba or something. So, which is, ridiculously fast chops of the sound. So yeah, just to conclude or kind of recap on that, it's just literally loop a sample, then play it over a beat and tap the tempo of that beat into the mixer. So that means obviously the sample is going to be cut up at a speed that relates to the actual BPM of the track that you're doing it over. And then, yeah, you're assigning a trans effect over the scratch sound, activating it, and then literally just moving the sample around, basically, yeah. And if you are going to practice the real transformer, get used to doing this. One thing you could try is if you just play a loop or a sound from a track, one way of practicing the crossfader is just to let a beat play and try and chop it into pieces, because you can obviously transform beats as well. It's a good way of getting used to the timing of it, so you're chopping in beats rather than just sort of random movements. Yeah, so hopefully that's given you a few ideas. I don't know if we've got any questions.
Yeah, one question that came in from, I will tell you who. Basically, we're asking about where would you get specific sort of sounds to scratch with. So I sort of mentioned you can get like, specific kind of turntablist vinyl records with.
Yeah, you can get that. I mean, that sample, the R sound that I was using, is from a tune called Change the Beat by Freddie Fresh.
That's like a classic scratch sample.
Yeah, and that's kind of considered public domain, I think, now, because it's been used so much. Sorry, it's not by Freddie Fresh, it's by Fab Five Freddy,
right.
the graffitiized. There's a website called digitaldjtools.net where you can download those samples. There's a few different freebies on there.
Someone else was saying SoundCloud is another good source.
Yeah, I mean, if you type in scratching samples, you're likely to find, Fresh, a few of those kind of classic ones.
Yeah.
Like there's the Ah Yeah one that comes from the Public Enemy concert. That's the recording of Chuck D, I think. The other thing, if you didn't have any scratching samples, that one cheating kind of way of creating one, if you like, would be to create a very short loop, because then you've got a constant tone. So if I've got, this is just a random, let's just put a random beat on. If I get it to a point where the tune's busy, and then go in, out, and then pull it back like that, I've got a kind of constant noise, which you can... Obviously the disadvantage with that is there's no end or silent bit either end of the sound, which is quite a lot of the scratch techniques rely on having a silent part, but you could use that to practice the transformer scratch, just have a buzzing noise playing and then get used to chopping the fader up so you can tell that you're cutting it in and out properly. Yeah.
Mr. Lee Pickett, hi Lee, said, can you do vocal chops over breakdowns?
Can I, or can, I mean, yeah.
Can one, can
you?
I
mean, that technique I just used with the trans effect, that's good for a cappellas. So you might have a vocal playing and then occasionally turn that on and off when the tune goes into a breakdown that you're mixing it into. Yeah. You could obviously chop it up. Let's just see if I've got an a cappella on here. You could just literally, do it over the, if they're singing or whatever, you can get a different kind of jittery, stuttery sort of effect. Tends to work better if there's someone singing long notes, because then obviously it's like a constant sound, whereas if it's a rapper it might be quite difficult to get it to sound good. But yeah, by all means use the trans effect for that.
Yeah, keep the questions coming, guys. There's a few sort of good ones so far, mostly picking up from that initial one about DJ samples and that kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, keep the questions coming. I think we're covered for now. Okay. So yeah, whatever you've got planned.
Yeah, next. I mean the other thing I was going to show you was a little trick using a snippet of an a cappella to create kind of build-ups and like just textures over a tune. More so with minimal and that sort of thing. It's kind of using an echo and the pitch range. So what I'm going to do is get an a cappella here. Where are we? So I've got this Dizzy Rascal a cappella. Obviously that sort of thing, if you've got an a cappella, is a good thing to scratch with, because it's just got the start of it is a gap, then a long sound. So you could by all means use a bit of an a cappella or a tune that you've got without beats over it. So what I'm going to do is, I've got this Dizzy Rascal a cappella. I've set a cue point. Now I'm going to take the master tempo off. So for those of you who don't know, master tempo is like key lock. So that means if that's on, the pitch of the vocal would stay at the original pitch, so like 0. Whereas with that off, the pitch will change in the same way that a turntable Technics would change the speed as well as the pitch. And if I go to the wide setting, that means now I've got a 200% speed range and pitch range. So it means I can basically create a massive, load of different notes using that vocal. So if I play a beat, then I tap the tempo in again, just in case it had lost it through the other technique. Now, if I assign an echo to that deck, so channel 2, put it on like a 3/4. Now, what I can do is, if I just tap it, obviously for a split second, if I tap the cue button, it just echoes out. But what you can do is kind of use the pitch with one hand and the cue button with your other hand. So you get these weird kind of textures at different pitches, obviously with echo. Quite good for build-ups if you've got a tune building up. And you start with the slider down at the bottom end, so it's really low pitch, and then maybe spend like 4 bars increasing the speed so that creates cool build-ups. And if you start the other end so that it starts high pitch and go down, obviously it's more likely you could use that to go into a breakdown like he was just asking about. So you'd never be able to tell that was Dizzy Rascal, so you could literally use any kind of snippet of a sound to create that layer, really. Yeah, so that's a cool little trick. I mean, you could try it with the different effects, like reverb as well would work. Reverb obviously is not quite the same as echo, it's like a very short echo. You can even get kind of slides out of it, so if you quickly move the speed down or up, you get these weird kind of pitch bends almost. So if you pitch. Yeah, so that's another thing you could use with scratch samples or with acapellas. It's just literally queuing it up, changing the pitch range so you've got a wide range of pitches, putting the echo on, and then activating that over a beat. Tends to work better if you've not got lots of melody and stuff going on in your tune. So that's why I mentioned stuff like minimal or tech house. You don't want to be kind of conflicting with the melodies or the riffs in your track. But yeah, it's quite a bit of fun as well, and you're kind of using it a bit more like an instrument rather than just traditionally kind of beat matching with it. Yeah. Have we got any other questions? Nice.
There's a bit of sort of chatter going on about, well, possibly doing some of these kind of effects in Ableton. So yeah, just to remind you, we do an Ableton DJ course as well, which is also half price this month. So yeah, you could still jump on board that one, and a lot of the techniques that obviously Ben's covering on the CDJs are not unique to you know, mixing on CDJs. You can replicate a lot of these kind of effects on Ableton as well. And that's all covered on that Ableton DJ course. So check that out if you get a chance to. I'll just have a quick look and see if the Ableton DJ class is one of the ones you can try for free. So the Ben's DJ course, which is this one, DJ Skills on Serato, that's one of the courses you can try samples for free. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. And yeah, keep the questions coming.
Yeah, so
what else you got for us, Ben?
Well, we've got, I mean, all manner of things. We could do, well, I could show you another little scratch technique if you like. I don't know if there's any feedback on the scratching on the forums there. Has anyone been mentioning the scratch technique?
Not so far.
One other scratch technique, which is a bit more fiddly, is called the chirp scratch, which is where it's a combination of the sound and the kind of silent gap at the start of the sound. So basically, if you've got a sample where, I don't know if you can see here, but I've set the cue point on the start of the sound, so it's basically the orange marker. So I've got silence, then the sound, and then I'm coming back into the silent part. So what the chirp involves is you're holding the sound at the beginning before the sound actually kicks in, so just before the actual audio in the gap. And the crossfader starts in the middle. So what you're doing is kind of shutting off the sound. As you push the sound forward, as soon as you hear it, you close the fader, so you get this kind of effect. It's like a short, sharp chop off. Then the second part of it is where you open the fader and pull the sound into the gap. So that means you get two short, sharp kind of sounds, one from the forward, one from the reverse. So when you put it together, you get those two noises, one after the other. So it's basically your hands are kind of moving away from each other and then coming back together almost. So it's like they do pretty much move at the same speed, but that it's crucial you get that silent part before the sound. That's why it won't work if you were using the shortened loop that I did earlier. You wouldn't be able to practice it with that because there is no kind of silent gap. And also it's like almost using your thumb in the same sort of way as if you were doing the opening shutting technique, but the opposite way around. So you're going shut open like this. So over a beat, let's do it over that. So. so it's a bit of a fiddly one. You've got to have the crossfader on sharp, as I mentioned before, and obviously you've got to get that timing right so that you're not chopping the sound off too early. You basically want it so that just after the sound happens, the fader shuts, and then the opposite, so you pull back into the gap. Yeah, so that's the chirp. If you look it up, I mean, that's covered in the Serato course as well, the online Serato course.
Cool,
yeah.
Okay. There's a couple more questions coming in. Oh, there's one about it's one of the most common questions we get asked actually, which is which DAWs do we prefer, or which ones are the best? And there's this ongoing debate, is Cubase the best, is Logic the best, and so on. If you've checked out the website, excuse me, you will see we teach on Logic, Ableton Live. We teach on a lot of kind of third-party software as well, so things like Native Instruments plugins. We teach on Cubase. We can't support absolutely everything that's out there, so we used to teach classes on Reason, and the demand kind of dropped off really, so that's not something we do anymore. Likewise with Fruity Loops, but yeah, certainly Logic, Ableton, Cubase, which are probably the three most widely used by professional producers. We do courses in all of those. You can check them out on the website. In terms of which one's the best, it's essentially a personal choice. If you speak to an Ableton user, he'll tell you that Ableton rules the world, and if you speak to a Logic guy, he'll tell you that Logic does everything that you need it to do. I noticed I think it was on our Facebook page earlier, there was a really good quote from Richie Horton, who was basically saying that it's not about the equipment, it's about what you do with it. So that's something we try and get across to the students is, whichever software package you choose, whether it's Cubase or Logic or Ableton, learn it as thoroughly as you can, preferably with one of the professionals who teaches for us. And that's what makes you a better producer. The software itself won't make your tracks sound great. It's what you can do with it that makes your tracks sound great. So hopefully that's answered that question. And then Ben, there was a couple of DJ questions. Someone was saying, can you show how to use the SD card in the CDJ-2000 to pre-program cue points?
We haven't actually got one in here at the moment because we're using a USB key, but you just basically put the SD card in there. You can actually store tracks on them as well, so you can, on these ones, you can actually have music on there. Obviously, it might not be the best quality if it all fits on an SD card, so I'm always telling students about the merits of having larger audio files, because obviously if you've got really small MP3s, you're going to have affected the sound quality of your tunes quite a lot. But yeah, you basically just put the SD card in there, and then you just select SD here, and then the tunes will load up. That's basically it. I mean, setting cue points and hot cues and stuff, it's just if your card was in there, I think you just hold down memory when you've set a cue point. So if just so you know, if I was going to set a hot cue, what I'd do is, on this for example, the hot cues are the three ABC buttons here. So you can either store loops or loop points on there, or cue points. So basically you just press record mode, so they go red. Then you could either hold it in place and go, right, press the button you want to assign that particular point to. So now when I press record mode a second time, that button triggers that cue point. Or you can do it while the tune's playing. So if I play the track, oh, a bit fast. If I play the track and I wanted to press it live, you just press record mode, and then when the tune got to a specific point, I've now saved that as a cue point without having to stop the track. So when I press record mode again, it's in trigger mode basically. Yeah, and if you hold down this memory button, it will save them to either your card or the USB, depending on which you're using. So that's how you do that. Or of course you could use Rekordbox, go into Rekordbox and save them in that software, and then when you load your key up on the CDJ, you can load them in. One thing worth mentioning actually, if you've saved cue points in Rekordbox on a key, they won't automatically load up as soon as you put the key in. You have to basically hold down that button, the record call button, for a couple of seconds, and then they kind of flash to indicate that there's hot cues saved on that track. Then when you press them, they will trigger. So they won't automatically load in as soon as you go to a new track. You have to kind of load them in from the key. Yeah. personally, I would advise using USB key because generally you can get larger file storage on there, or even a hard drive. These take hard drives, so you can plug a external hard drive in and you can fit a lot more.
Someone else was talking about record box as well and saying, can cues be memorised to the card from the player, or does it have to be done in record box?
I would have to check on that. I think, well, you can definitely do it in record box. That's what record box is for. Yeah. You can save them, like the old ones used to be able to press memory, and if there wasn't a card, the only thing you could use a card for on the CDJ-2000s was saving memory points, basically.
Yeah.
So you used to be able to press memory and it would say card and then it would save it to those. Yeah, it's not something I've done, saving them from here and then checking whether they show up in record box, but I wouldn't be surprised if you could do that, yeah.
Yeah, someone else was asking about, not sort of DJ related particularly, but again, it's a question that we get a lot. Was asking specifically about VST synths for dubstep. Obviously, if you want tips on making those kind of classic dubstep sounds, best place to get those is the dubstep course. We teach it on Ableton Live and we teach it on Logic. I know they look at Massive on that course, but we also show you how to really get the most out of your DAW. So, you know, don't overlook the power of the synths in Logic, and likewise on Ableton Live you can get some killer sounds out of those synths if you know what you're doing. So, you know, don't just reach for a preset on Massive or on Sugarbyte's Cyclops, which is what someone else has just recommended. You know, part of what we try and teach is to give you the kind of the creativity to start building your own sounds from scratch. That way you're not using the same kind of, you know, wobbly kind of bass sounds that everyone else is using. You know, you've got your own kind of flavour to your tracks. So as I said, lots of that sort of material on the dubstep course. If you really want to get deep into kind of shaping your own sounds and building kind of bass patches and pads and, you know, all that kind of stuff, check out the sound design courses. That's where you'll find some really kind of juicy material. Okay, anyone else got any DJ related questions? We'd love to hear from you, or, you know, any others. So yeah, keep them coming. We've got about, I reckon, about 8 to 10 minutes left. So what have you got in your
tricks? Well, on the kind of cheating, fake scratching kind of theme, another thing you can do, which is known as the cue scratch, on a CDJ, you wouldn't be able to do this. Well, this has kind of come from a scratch technique that you used to be able to do on vinyl. Basically, if you're, let's just get this sample. So one scratch technique is known as the forward cut, which is where you're kind of playing the sound forward, then shutting out the rewind part, right? Then there's another one called a stab, which is where if you push the sound forward and open the fader, you kind of get a more high-pitched version of that. So you can alternate between the forward cut and the stab to get kind of, right? So obviously that takes a bit of practice because you've got to get the tension right with the fader, and you're alternating and you're always kind of pulling back with the fader shut. So if you wanted to emulate that with the CD deck, the beauty of the cue function is that it silently returns to the cue point. So a forward cut that I was just doing there would be able to be achieved by just literally going, because every time I take my finger off the cue button, it snaps back to that cue point. Whereas a stab, if you push on the platter like that, it silently returns to the start point. So it sounds exactly like that, right? So if you get your left hand on the cue button, your right hand on the platter, you can alternate like that. So you can kind of get quite a cool effect. Again, it sounds exactly the same, it's just you're not having to use the crossfader. Obviously as well, because it's queued up, you could also do a bit of just baby scratching. So you've got about 3 different techniques just with the not even touching the mixer. Forward cut, stab, and baby scratch.
how to cheat at scratching.
I mean, you still need a degree of skill to be able to do that. Obviously, you need to be able to tap in time and stuff, which is the same as, or a lot of it's similar to scratching. Anyone who's a drummer would obviously find that probably a bit easier than practicing the whole crossfader thing.
There's a couple of good questions coming actually, Ben. Maybe a couple of more sort of basic DJ ones. Do DJs have to worry about clipping?
Yes, definitely. It's a common.
You might say that.
It's a common problem. You've got to be checking your gain levels, and especially your master gain level. So sometimes you see DJs, they're just fully redlining. Every channel's fully up in the red. You might get away with it, but I'd always say, listen. If it sounds like it's clipping, turn it down, turn the gains down. Some mixers, it might be going into the red, but as long as the sound is not distorting, that's obviously the main thing, because most punters or people at the gigs aren't going to be looking at your levels. But, in terms of gain, I'd always be trying to keep it below red if possible, because, it's the same as clipping in music production terms. You don't want there to be distortion, especially if you've paid good money for all your tracks and then you've got all your gains whacked right up and it's kind of...
It sounds horrible.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I would keep an eye on it. Obviously, the gains are there to balance out the levels of tracks that are different volumes, because you might be using different, vinyl or CDs or different formats. But yes, I would worry about clipping. Yes.
So the short answer is yes. You should worry about clipping.
Just use your ears, use your judgment.
This is all something you talk about in more detail on the course.
Definitely,
right?
yeah. I'm constantly drumming that into people's heads. Yeah. Constantly turning it down slightly.
I know it's tempting to just crank everything up, but not a good idea in the long term.
And you might be on a gig where everyone's been redlining it, and you then come and sort the levels out, and you're then going to sound better than everyone else because your set isn't going to be distorting all over the place. So,
someone else said, I'm not going to try and pronounce their name actually. I'm new to DJing, so what makes a good transition from one song to another? Could you show me? Key techniques, like accurate beat matching, isn't it?
Well, beat matching, phrase matching. That's what I mean. A lot of people can get beats matched, but they're not necessarily getting the sections of music lined up correctly. So at the college, we'll teach you how to count sections of music and phrases, so that you're aligning the tunes. Oops. So you're aligning the tunes so that the 8-bar sections are lining up over each other, and therefore all the tunes will change at the same points, and it will sound more musical. In terms of transitions without beat matching, that you could use effects or an echo and put the echo on the end of one tune and into the next tune. I can give you a quick example of that if you want. Just really, you don't have to beat match all the time. What I'd avoid doing is putting tunes over each other when you know they're not beat matched and they're clanging and the beats are all out of time, because no one likes listening to that really, especially not me. So imagine I've got a tune queued up on this side. I think I might have shown this last week actually. It's just with echo. So you just put the echo on the channel. Just put the echo on and grab it. Then start your new tune. So that's obviously a transition between completely different genres. But
so X Winnitz, I think is your name. I mean there's lots of examples of like other transitions you can make, without kind of beat matching. But on the DJ course, the key technique that Ben and the other DJ tutors try to get across is just making sure you can beat match nice and accurately between two tracks, because that's the key skill, isn't it, really? Once you can do that, you're on your way to being a DJ.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are DJs who make their livings who can't beat match. With hip-hop, you might be doing more drop mixing. So that's where you're still counting the sections of music, but you're not letting the tunes overlap. You're waiting until one tune reaches the end of a section and then dropping the new tune in from the start of a section. So then you're kind of keeping the phrases intact, but they're not actually the same speed necessarily. Even that can be done badly though. So a lot of people won't know to count properly and will just clang one into the other when it's not at an appropriate point.
Yeah.
So it's all about timing, counting beats, bars and phrases I would say would be the thing to practice with that.
And Lee Pickett said, can you mix different types of dance music and have them sounding good with scratching? I mean, again, that's something you looked at a little bit last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Some of those kind of, I know you were using some of the effects to mix in sort of techniques that were kind of influenced by scratching but still sounded good over like house.
Yeah, I mean, like I did earlier with that pitched thing, I mean, that's a kind of form of turntablism because you're using the deck a bit like an instrument. You've just got to think, is it appropriate? I wouldn't probably play some funk and soul and start going, oh yeah, all over it, because it's going to not be in keeping with that style of music. But with dance music, it's all electronic sounds. So with the CDs and effects, you can make scratching sound like it isn't scratching, but you're kind of still dropping little snippets over the beats and stuff. Yeah, it's a common kind of misconception that I'm not into hip hop, therefore scratching is irrelevant. Yeah. Which I think the more skills you've got, the better. Really.
Someone like James Abiela is quite a good.
Yeah.
He's quite a good example of that, isn't he? Really, because he doesn't really play, kind of hip hop.
Not as much, stuff. No. Yeah, and he scratches. He just he does that thing I did with the loop and the trans effect.
Yeah.
It's all creative. If you might be the only DJ in your genre who does a little bit of scratching, and then you're going to be more popular and stand out more because you're a bit different to everyone else, kind of thing. Yeah.
And someone, Tommaso 900 was saying, how do you know what tunes you've played in your set? I get that kind of comes with experience, doesn't it? Really.
How do you know what tunes you're gonna play? Or
how do you know what tunes you've played? So I suppose how do you kind of keep track of?
Well, in Scratch Live, there's a function where it can track your sessions. So you can, if you've played a 4-hour set, you can go back into the actual. It's like I can't remember the name for it. It's records or something, and it can track every track you've played. So if you're using things like Mixcloud, you can go into Scratch Live and get the file that's stored all the order of the tracks you've played and upload that to Mixcloud if you're uploading a mix of what you've recorded or whatever. So that, yeah. Or I would personally create little crates when I do a gig. I'll create a new playlist and put the tracks that I think I might play in there to kind of keep track of where everything is. Yeah.
So it's not like the old days where you just had to remember.
No. It's a bit easier
that
nowadays.
That shows you how long it is since I've done any DJing.
Yeah, it's a bit easier now.
So yeah, we're kind of getting towards the end really. So last chance to get any questions in on the comments section. And then are you going to kind of play us out, Ben? Are you going to do like a little...
Well, I've got a little... After last week we had a
routine?
Comment about the drum and bass, so I thought I'd play a drum and bass classic with a little a cappella over it. I can give you a bit of example of that. Yeah.
So yeah, if you've got any last minute questions, try and get them in and I can maybe answer them while Ben sort of plays us out. As always, we'll be back same time next week, Friday 1 o'clock for another Friday Forum Live. Don't forget, classes start Monday. It's kind of your last chance if you want to get on board for the classes starting Monday. And as always, if you've got any questions after Friday Forum is over, you can contact us via the website. You can email us at advice@pointblankonline.net, and we'll be happy to kind of steer you towards the right course or answer any questions you might have. But for now, it's bye from me. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week on Friday Forum. Here comes Mr. Bristow.
It's your birthday. We gon' party like it's your birthday. We gon' sip Bacardi like it's your birthday. And we don't give up, it's not your birthday. You can find me in the club, bottle full of bug. Mama, I got what you need if you need to fill a bug. I'm in the having sex, I ain't into making love. So come give me a hug. You can find me in the club, bottle full of bug. Mama, I got what you need if you need to fill a bug. I'm in the having sex, I ain't into making love. So come give me a hug. When I pull up out front, you see the Benz on good. When I roll up 20 deep, so much drama in the club. Now that I roll with Dre, everybody show me love. When we select them and them, get plenty of groupie love. Homie, ain't nothing changed. Hands down, chains up, chain down, chains up, chain down, chains up, zip it in the cutting, roll them dreams, cut it, hands down, chains up, zip it in the cutting, roll them dreams up. Watch how I move, stick, play.